Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at Thor yet again. This time, we're going to be spamming some HE. Oh, I know. I'm sorry, but it had to be done for science. We get to try the brawling, we get to try the limit testing on the tankiness. Yes, that was 13,000 alpha damage on the HE, so we must try HE spam Thor. Truly the cruiser replacement here. We got the radar, we got the concealment, we got the HE spam, alongside a ship that can tank way better than any cruiser in the game, because it's a battleship with some of the best battleship armor. So that's what we're up to today. This ship is incredibly powerful. I need to make this incredibly clear. This ship is crazy. This line is extremely powerful. The only downside really being the slightly inconsistent dispersion. And whether or not you're someone who is frustrated with dispersion, of which I think it's safe to say I am, that'll be the one thing that maybe keeps you away from this line. It's well worth grinding. It is very powerful. Playing Thor here, we're actually on the same map that I was playing Gustav, the tier 9, and we're doing the same fighting retreat, except we're spamming high explosive. And you're going to see that that is generally going to be a good idea. As much as I hate to admit it, the HE here is pretty good. I think on the lower tier ones, maybe a little less so. You do lack on the fire chance, down at 25% fire chance on the tier 8 and the tier 9. Here we get some normal fire chance on these high explosive shells, 36%. We get 68 millimeters of pen on the HE. We're only 406s, right? So we don't have a ton of overmatch here. So it makes a lot of sense maybe to just spam HE and then possibly swap over to armor piercing when you get that perfect opportunity. That might be the correct way to play these ships, as much as I hate to admit it. We get 5,700 alpha damage on this high explosive as well, putting it pretty much exactly at Montana HE stat lines. Same alpha damage, same pen, and even the same fire chance. However, when it comes to high explosive, it's a little bit less about our alpha damage and the outright fire chance, or even the pen, because Battleship HE all has generally enough pen. It's a lot about DPM and fires per minute characteristics. I think this is really what it comes down to when we want to spam high explosive out of our battleship. And from those metrics, it doesn't look too great. Thor HE DPM is at 123,000, which is not great. GK is its closest competitor with its 406s at 119,000. It's a little better than things like Willem, right? Willem has 118k HE DPM. So Willem's a good HE spammer. We know this with its airstrike supplementing some of that HE and fire damage can do a great job. But what about the fires per minute? Because this is what it comes down to when relighting, trying to get permanent fires. We got the double fire on that Palmern and the damage control. So can we get the relights? Our fires per minute here is 7.8, which is not terribly inspiring. Montana is at 8.6. Something like Bourgogne is at 9.3. If we're comparing to Conqueror levels, Conqueror's at 11.5 fires per minute. And that Conqueror HE DPM, by the way, is at 172,000. It is no Conqueror. It's not even quite Montana levels of HE spam. But what it does have is a fast reload. So if you get lucky with those fires, you can get the permafire, followed by the double permafire, followed by 2 torpits with 2 floodings. And that poor Palmern is not long for this poor world. It can work, okay? It can work. And because we don't have a ton of overmatch with this AP, and I honestly don't trust us to pinpoint accurately hit some of these superstructures, I think the HE is actually a pretty good one to go for. What are we going to do with AP into this angled Libertad pushing into us? We may as well just shoot the high explosive, and even if we don't get the fires, we get some chip damage. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, we just missed a Libertad entirely at 14 kilometers. It's a little bit inconsistent, okay? And it's a good thing that it is. I really got to make this point clear. This ship is crazy powerful. The battle impact here is off the charts with this engine boost and this radar. Tanky hull. I mean, we're getting upwards of 3 million potential damage in a battleship that a weak point is its HP pool. Doesn't seem like a weak point, right? I do got to say, this is a requirement that this ship has to have bad dispersion. Otherwise, what would be the downside, right? It needs to have this bad dispersion. I am simply lamenting as someone who enjoys ships that have good dispersion that this ship does not have that good dispersion. Not saying that it should have that good of dispersion, because otherwise it would be just flat out busted, overpowered. Libertad, we do get the follow-up double fire here. Perma-fires, love to see it. It's been RNG based, whether or not we're actually getting those permanent fires that are actually going to do the damage. And then I continued to shoot HE. Okay, I committed to the bit. I committed, guys. I gave it my absolute best here to spam just high explosive. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to swap to armor piercing, but I didn't. Although at a certain point, I'm gonna have to start listening and swapping over to the AP, because you shouldn't, let's be honest, we shouldn't just spam HE out of our HE battleships. Even things like Conqueror, Rhode Island, Thunderer, ships with great HE, they still, when they are given the opportunity, want to swap over to the armor piercing. And that, I think, is what we want to play Thor as. The more I've played with this line, the more I've enjoyed playing aggressive, mostly shooting HE actually at the start of games, just to get some supplemental damage in. Early on, if you get that opportunity to push up to a cap and radar, well, then you got HE loaded for that destroyer. Maybe it does decent damage, maybe you hit some modules, but you take out the engine or the rudder on an enemy destroyer, well, suddenly your high DPM cruisers and destroyers can land a lot more damage easily. It's a good tactic to run this ship early on with the HE, and then only swap over to that armor piercing when that opportunity arises. Did you notice we went dark there for a second before we finished off that Iparanga? Des Moines pushing into us. We'll send the Torps out in his general direction. Reminder, the Torps here are absolutely wild. They're basically gearing level Torps. They're faster than gearing Torps, but they're missing 1.5 kilometers of distance while missing, I think, only 300 alpha damage from gearing Torps. Crazy stuff. And we're dark again. Well, yes, we can just go dark here. And I've swapped to the AP. Yes, I could not resist for too much longer. There were just too many broadsides, okay? You can't blame me. And now we're going to see possibly the best salvo I've ever had out of Thor. It is very, very temperamental. Full health dev strike on the Des Moines, just minutes after completely missing a Libertad at the same range. It is inconsistent, but it's very, very good. When it hits, it's absolutely busted in these situations. And I think that's what it comes down to here, is we want to use that AP sparingly when we're given the best opportunities. Otherwise, just stick to that high explosive. Pushing up to a cap here, talking more about the general playstyle. What happens if you get rushed by some of these crazy new secondary battleships like Libertad, Valparaiso? Well, you got Torps and you've got surprisingly good main guns when they go broadside. And that's a Libertad taken out already. And notice we're getting our radar all over that cap zone. This is how I found myself having the most battle impact with Thor, was that I would use my crazy concealment and speed to push up alongside my cruisers, my destroyers, towards the cap, and then try to get my radar involved. Oftentimes, that didn't necessarily happen, but it was the concept that counts. We were just kind of steamrolling a lot of these flanks, to be honest with you. But with this concealment, with this tankiness, with this radar, we can easily just sit in front of these caps all day. And if we start to take a bit of damage, pop our engine boost, and then we can get out of our bad position very, very quickly. Yes, this is the same match where we absolutely nuke that Vermont with HE. I want to show off, though, a little more of the inconsistency here. There's the Wisconsin doing the same thing I am. Forward, reverse, speed juking. This is very common for battleships to do these days. And we're getting some really good salvos, and then we're getting some not so good salvos. Notably, not getting those fires either. And for someone like me who doesn't shoot HE a lot out of my battleships, this is really why. I find I don't want to miss an opportunity for armor piercing, but it also feels kind of bad to be shooting HE, the whole point of which is to get a little bit lower damage, but more consistent damage, I guess, and get those fires ticking. So when you get the alpha damage and the fires, it feels amazing, but that is not the usual output of this ship. And something like Bourgogne, where I often just shoot armor piercing. I'm one of those players who kind of refuses stubbornly to shoot the HE. Even in a good one like that, Bourgogne has the reload booster to not always guarantee follow-up fires, but for the most part, guarantee those follow-up fires. It's really handy to have. And that one has way more fires per minute than we do on Thor. Remember, 7.8 on Thor, where Borgone is at 9.3. And ships like Rhode Island, St. Vincent, Conqueror, Thunder, they're like 50% higher in the 11 to 12 fires per minute range, alongside higher HE DPM base, way higher alpha damage as well. Some of them much better accuracy too, I would say. But what those ships don't have is torpedoes, and what they certainly also don't have is incredible armor and speed to brawl with. I wish Thor did not have this radar, guys. If this ship was exactly how it is without the radar, it's just a incredibly fun brawling battleship focused on torpedoes brawling, not secondary brawling. This is the extension of Karl Johan and Njord, except way better, turned way up, because this engine boost allows us to be incredibly quick and maneuverable to capitalize on Cyclones. This is maybe one of the best battleships ever in Cyclones. Not because it has crazy overwhelming secondaries to take you out, but because it can close distances in a blink of an eye and hit you with gearing level torpedoes at point blank range, which you're not going to be dodging very easily. Alongside pretty quick rudder shift, it doesn't need the radar to have this really fun brawling playstyle. And I did see that Wargaming put out a video on how to play these ships and said, don't brawl, go use your radar. And I agree with that, okay? Brawling is not easy in this game, but it is so fun. Yeah, that was like 10k salvo with HE into an angled Hindenburg. When it hits, it goes crazy. But it's so fun, man, to get into these brawling situations with these battleships and use the torpedoes to essentially nuke out some of the best brawling battleships in the game, things like Libertads, and it's so consistent in that scenario. And I know I'm starting to talk about hypotheticals and things that I wish the ship had, even though it's not going to have those things. But imagine no radar, a longer reload, more consistent accuracy, and just that focus on try to get into brawls with these torpedoes. Oh, it'd be so much fun. It's already a very fun battleship. It's already a very good battleship. Sending these torps out across common gaps in the enemy's lines here. Yeah, we're just going to hit a Pommern and torps we launched such a long time ago. Having 15 kilometers of range feels crazy on these torpedoes, considering our concealment of 12.3. We're going to send some HE into the bow of that main and get, yeah, over 10,000 damage yet again. When these shells hit, they actually do a lot of damage. They just don't hit very consistently. And again, it needs to have that weakness. Otherwise, it's just absolutely crazy, the power level here. But as soon as we get to these close range brawls, that starts to matter just a little less. Can guarantee a lot more shell hits in. That's 10k from our front guns only. And then another 3k. That is some high HE alpha damage, even though that is just Monty HE alpha damage. It's essentially running like GK guns, right? Hear me out. Hear me out. It's the same accuracy as GK, 1.8 Sigma, Battleship Dispersion, exactly the same, with pretty similar HE and AP DPM. You're effectively running GK guns here. It just goes to show how insanely powerful the rest of Thor's kit is, because I would not call GK guns that busted powerful, right? It's the rest of the package here that allows Thor to brawl so much easier. Tiny little superstructure. It's got way better concealment. It has way better maneuverability. It's got way better firing angles too. We unfortunately do miss a Los Andes yet again. Flashes of the Kansas video. Oh, broadside Valparaiso. Yeah, no citadels, unfortunately for us. It's a little inconsistent, but the torps are not. I have been getting some incredible value out of these torps. Yeah, walking in and point blank torp salvos are great, but so too is 70-knot torpedoes when we're dealing with enemy battleships trying to push in against us. What about a Des Moines on like 3,000 HP that is flat broadside to us? We take them out, but that was 4 overpens we take them out. The guns are inconsistent, man. They really just are. And the torps are not. When these things hit, they do so much more damage. I compared already to Karl Johan as well as Njord. Those ships have low alpha damage torpedoes to get the range and the speed on battleship torps. Here you don't have that weakness. You have high alpha damage torpedoes. We pop the damage control on this Los Andes. That's what I was waiting for on this shot. That synergy there allows us to get the permanent fire here, and we turned around to get our other side torps off against this guy. Hopefully, we managed to finish him off. That's one of the reasons that allows Borgone to be such an effective HE spammer, even though it's a step behind things like Conqueror. It has the synergy of the reload booster. When someone damage controls, you can try to guarantee those follow-up fires. Maybe the torpedoes here function in a similar way. If you manage to land those torps, maybe they are damage controlling that flood, and then you can follow up with the fires. There is some synergy there. The HE is pretty good. And considering our AP is so inconsistent on so many of these broadsides, let alone angled ships, I really think the best way to play your Thor is going to be spam that high explosive until you get given the perfect opportunities. And then you hope, okay? We're still not getting great damage here on this broadside Ohio, but you just gotta hope, all right? He angles now, so we may as well swap over to that high explosive. And oh, what's that potentially on our flank? The destroyer. Yes, the radar. You get yourself a 25-second radar here, 10 kilometers range. You can buff that duration up with the radar mod, which I would suggest you do. That is just simply insanely powerful on a battleship that is this tanky. And the more I've played with it, the more it's felt a bit like Kremlin level tankiness. Not quite. I mean, the damage controlled HP differences there certainly contribute a lot, but with the better maneuverability we have here, the rudder shift being so quick and allowing us to not take prop mod thanks to this incredible engine boost, I can avoid a lot more damage than I would in a Kremlin. And it's similarly armored on the upper belt, it feels like, right? That 70 mil upper belt shatters a lot of high explosive coming in at you. The deck armor is not as tanky, certainly, but we're a way smaller ship, as well as having a similarly small superstructure here. When we go directly bow in, there's not a lot for the enemies to aim at. So we're taking minuscule amounts of damage each time someone actually tries to hit us when we're angled. When we go broadside, of course, we do have that waterline citadel, but more often than not, as I've been playing with this ship, I just haven't really eaten citadels. Waterline, spaced armor citadels are still very hard to hit, even though they are a little bit easier than something like Libertad Citadel at range. That angled plate makes it almost impossible. Here it's technically possible, but very unlikely is the feeling that I am getting. And another successful running at an enemy battleship, this time on Ohio, which used to be a pretty good brawler if I'm remembering correctly. We could just sprint directly at some of these battleships and potentially torp them out using our HE until someone gives flat broadside. And then we got just enough to let them get away. Not quite the depth strike, but don't worry, the torps are here alongside the Kraken. And now we eat the torpedoes. It was looking too good to be true, wasn't it? All these YOLO rushes without eating torpedoes. That, of course, is the downside, is going to be how do you deal with the torpedoes if you're trying to push in and trying to brawl in those situations? The answer is you're not trying to push enemy spawns. You're trying to go deal with the enemy team that's pushing into you, okay? If you'll notice, my most successful portions of this video are oftentimes when I re-push an enemy team that is trying to push my spawn. And that is typically where I'm going to have the best success. Oh, and by the way, without prop mod, notice we're in full reverse right now. Well, not quite full. -6 knots. And homing torps are in for us. I wait until I'm at the furthest back that I'm going to be, because the torps home in on the last pinged location when you damage control. And without prop mod, I'm able to dodge this. This is an insane value engine boost here. And we can turn it off and on as we need it. The maneuverability here is absolutely incredible and very underrated, I would say, perhaps. Can it be underrated? I mean, we just got these ships, but it's one of my favorite parts of this thing. It's tanky because it can dodge so much incoming damage, and even if it does get hit, the armor here is very good. I mean, look at the bow-in profile here. This is what the Ohio was shooting at when we were pushing in. The Vermont would have been 2, and Maine. Like, when you're pushing in for a brawl, unless you can overmatch 32, or you load the HE or Colombo Sap and hit here, I mean, it's going to be tough to actually damage this thing, man. It's very, very powerful, okay? Maybe, I don't know if I made that clear enough in my first video or not. Extremely powerful. I personally just don't like inconsistent dispersion on battleships, okay? And that's why I've been a little bit timid about how much I like this ship, okay? The power level here is very, very, very high. I just personally would rather play a weaker ship, quote unquote weaker ship, that has more consistent main guns. That's just a preference of mine, okay? And perhaps I focused too much of that on the initial coverage. But HE spam here, yeah, it's a good strategy. Unfortunately, it's a good strategy. Spam the HE until you get the good opportunity when someone goes broadside. 13.2 second swap time is not too bad here. We don't have like any sort of improved gun feeder, but make sure you run gun feeder because the AP is still worth using. I don't want to see a bunch of Thors out there only shooting HE. You should use some AP from time to time. It is very good still when it hits. Although you could say that about any battleship. When it hits, it's good. Or any ship in the game. Maybe not the best commentary, but that is what it is. The AR here helping a lot to get us down to a sub 20 second reload rather quickly, as well as I was taking Furious. This is the build that I kind of landed on towards the end, by the way. I really want gun feeder. Grease the gears as well, because the Turgetverse is quite slow for 9406s, as well as taking improved repair party readiness instead of emergency repair expert, allowing me to greed Furious out. It's very easy to proc this buff. Getting your 5th heal on 2 million potential damage is not too hard in this ship, in my opinion. And it also helps our cooldown rate of our heal. By the time you're over 2 million potential damage, 2.5 million potential damage, your heal cooldown's down to 60 seconds instead of 80 base. That is a massive bonus too, that some of these lower hit point battleships get more value out of improved repair party readiness, which is a nice bonus. Of course, fire prevention and concealment. 12.3 detect is wild. It's so low. Not compared to like the tier 8 and 9. I don't have this one built, but it goes down to 11.4, I believe, and 11.2 on the tier 8. Maybe it's 0.4 and 0.6, but very powerful in the concealment, and then you just have that 10-kilometer radar. There's not a very large window for you to spot this battleship while not being inside its radar range. If you're a destroyer trying to do some team play elements like that, it's not easy to do. Of course, we're going reload mod, conceal, and I would recommend steering gears. The more I've played with it, steering gears, man, it's so good. If you need a burst of speed, you got the pocket engine boost, 25%, and typically, you shouldn't be using this to traverse the map. I don't think this ship is fast enough already, even without using the engine boost and something like Brisk. You know, I'm not even running that here. I still found myself easily able to keep up with my cruisers and cross the map relatively quickly. So using this in emergencies, as we saw in that last clip, is pretty good. It's pretty good. So steering gear is really nice there. Please go aiming systems. The dispersion is bad enough already. And then I went radar mod and damage control mod these days, if you have the coal for it. So there's the HE spam Thor, or as much HE spam as I am willing to do. I still feel bad. I don't like spamming HE, guys. I just want to use AP, and I probably still will stubbornly spam armor piercing when I should swap over to the HE. But I had to try it, and it is a really good way to play this ship and get more value out of it. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.